Sangye chotan soki shonam la chanjo barde dani kyapsuchi daki jinso chipa sonam ki drola penser senke drobarsho. Sangye chotan soki shonam la chanjo barde dani kyapsuchi daki jinso chipa sonam ki drola penser senke drobarsho. Sangye chotan soki shonam la chanjo barde Tani Kyapsu. Dangi Jinso Jepa Sonamgi. Drola Pincher. Sangha. Samjun Damsi Dewatan Dewe Gyudan Dambar Gyuchi. Sanjan Tamsi Dungotan Dungagi Gyudan Tawa Gyuchi. Sanjan Tamsi Dungamewa Dewatan Mitrawa Gyuchi. Sanjan Damsi Niran Chadan Yila Nipe Tonyola. Niban Gyuchi Oma Sobawa. Shoda Sabadama. Sobawa. Shodo Ham. The way tummo is practiced in the Six Yogas of Naropa is somewhat simplified or streamlined, you could say, from the way it's practiced in Guhya Samaja or the other tantras, but follows the basic principle of the Chakra Sambhara and He Vajra Tantra systems. And so yesterday we went through 3 or 4 of the yantras, the body movements, and starting with the 9-round breathing, and then the vase breath, and the twirling of the tummy, and the snapping of the, solar plexus. And then empty body. So let's start today with the empty body, just the body as a pure energy entity. And then we put in the 2 energy channels. And then the central channel down the middle of the 2. And just above the lower aperture inside the central channel, the sun disk. And at the top of the channel, the moon disk. And at the 4 chakra places, the side channels twisting 3 times around the central channel, constricting the flow. In the navel chakra, the ah stroke syllable, shaped like a long, thin thorn. And at the crown chakra, white syllable, ha, shaped a little bit like the Western letter 5, hanging upside down. Throat, red Om, standing upright, and heart, blue Hung, hanging upside down. And we put the mind on the white Ha in the crown chakra for a few moments. And the red Ah, mind on the red Ah in the throat chakra. Oh, Om in the throat chakra. and blue hung in the heart chakra. And then the red Ah at the center of the navel chakra, standing on the sun disk. It's sometimes said the smaller you visualize it, the better, the more powerful the effect. But in that there's only your body and nothing else in the world. If you make your body seem very large as Mount Everest, sort of like blowing up the whole thing in size, then it's easy to visualize. And as though you're inside that red Ah, looking into the 4 directions and the 64 channel petals in the navel chakra, looking up and looking down. And then with mind still on the little red Ah in the navel chakra, we'll do the vase breath. Per se, 3 breaths, and as we breathe in, press down and pull up on the muscles of the pelvic floor, sort of pressing the energies toward the little Ah. And then we'll do 3 breaths when we hold the breath and press down and pull up, and sitting upright, twirl the tummy 3 times clockwise, 3 times counterclockwise. And then three breaths with, again, the 3 channels and the mind on the little in the navel chakra. And as we take in the vase breath or the pranayam, roll the tummy down and out in front, and then snap it back. And after this one we can do, which we didn't do yesterday, and it's known as the blazing and dripping. Where you take in the breath and press down, and the energies from the side channels flow into the central channel. And like bellows blowing air into a fire, the sun becomes more hot and the becomes more hot. And the little flames wisp counterclockwise coming up the central channel. And they come up through the heart chakra, through the throat chakra, to the crown chakra. And at the crown chakra, the syllable ha just melts and drops into the om at the throat. Then we do another breath. And again, the breath, the heat enters, the energies enter the central channel from below. And the sun and the become very warm and rise up to the heart and to the throat. And in the throat chakra, completely melt the red om. And the om melts and just turns into a drop and falls down and falls into the blue hung at the heart. And then another breath. The energy enters into the navel chakra from below, and the sun and the become very warm, and the flames swirl counterclockwise up the central channel to the heart. And at the heart, they melt the syllable hung. And it turns into a blue drop and just falls and down the central channel into the fire. And at that time, we just hold the mind there. And we should notice a kind of a mild sensation of pleasure or bliss or joy. And we just rest the mind in that sort of radiant, joyful sense with the syllable ah. Om Deva Pichu Basha Hum Pe Soha Om Deva Pichu Basha Hum Pe Soha Om Deva Pichu Basha Hum Pe Soha. So in terms of the 10 Dharmas of Naropa, then usually the tummo is divided how to get the energies into the central channel. And once you get the energies into the central channel, how to give rise to the 4 joys or the 4 blisses or 4 ecstasies or 4 orgasmic explosions. So what we've been doing so far is the first of those 2, how to get the energies to enter the central channel. And when we manage to do that, then the second stage, how to invoke the 4 joys. A number of techniques are taught, and sometimes with physical exercises, or yantra, energy exercises or movements. Trilkor, magical emanations or magic wheels, magic circles, emanating circles. But the main idea of the first of the methods is we put the mind on the 3 channels and the 4 chakras, and then on the little ah. And we do the vase breath. And as we breathe in, pressing the energy into the central channel, the ah becomes very hot, and the sun disk very hot. And the flames rise up the core of the body and touch the moon disk in the crown. And the moon disk releases a drop, like a drop melting a white candle, but it doesn't become smaller, it just releases a dot. Sort of like almost like an individual cell reproducing itself or something like that. And so we breathe in, press down, pull up, put the mind on ah, and the heat swirls like little flames, swirl upward at the central channel, through the heart, through the throat, coming to the crown, and the moon disk in the center of the central channel at the top of the aperture becomes very warm and releases a double. And it falls down like a marshmallow falling slowly, or a wisp of cotton candy falling slowly from a 13-story building. It sort of comes very gently and joyfully down the central channel. And it falls into the sun disk. Falling into the sun disk gets even warmer. And then we let out the breath and take in another deep breath. And press the energies into the central channel. And again, the fires come up the central channel, through the heart chakra, through the throat chakra, up to the crown chakra, touch the moon, and the moon emits a double. And if we'll be doing this at home, then we do it, stay at that stage for maybe a week or something like that, until the rising fire and the descending waters of the moon have the effect of opening the central channel from base to top and top to base. And sometimes we do a yantra with that, a movement, and those of you who've done this with me before, you know it well, but we'll do it anyway. You'll hold your hands like this. Take the breath, push down and pull up. And as though you're lifting up fire from the sun, and it comes up to the heart chakra, and up to the throat chakra, up to the crown chakra, and into the moon. Then turning the hands over, and as though forcing the drop from the moon to come down, to release a double, and pulling it down to the throat, down to the heart, and down to the navel chakra. And one could do 21 of those breaths. It's often said that when you do it, if you have high blood pressure, don't squeeze too hard with the muscles of the abdomen, and don't lift and pull down too hard. The lifting is done with a sort of artificial resistance. And so you're lifting maybe 100 kilos straight up the central channel. And then pulling the moon drop down. So the flaring and the dripping. So in this way, the central channel is prepared, you could say, for the experience of the four blisses. The four joys. And doing these four joys, one does much the same with the chakras and the nadis and the little the sun and the moon. Takes a breath and presses into the little and the moon becomes very warm and comes down to the throat chakra, and as it touches the center of the throat chakra, in bliss invokes or arouses great bliss. And then down to the heart chakra, supreme bliss. Down to the navel chakra, extraordinary, fabulous bliss. And then continues down to the secret chakra. And the secret chakra can either be just to the center of the pelvic floor, a half an inch or so inside the body, or it can be one of the sexual chakras. On a male, the tip of the Vajra, as it's called, and on women, the mound of the lotus. And when the drop arises there, we hold it, not allowing it to move. And it gives rise to bliss born together with primordial radiance. And we hold it at that secret chakra for as long as is comfortable. And then we reverse the flow of the drop, bringing it from the secret chakra back up to the navel chakra, giving rise to bliss. Back up to the heart chakra, great bliss. Back up to the throat chakra, super, extraordinary, fabulous bliss. And back up to the crown chakra, bliss born together with primordial radiance. But losing seminal fluid doing the practice is considered a serious obstacle to success, because once one loses seminal fluid, two things can happen in practice. One is it can become a habit. So whenever you do the practice, you lose fluid. You basically have kind of a mini orgasm. And after releasing fluid, the energies of tummo energies are very, very don't have the same intensity. I was going to say very weak, but then I thought, oh yes, but for a week or two, so very weak for a week or two. So lose intensity for a week or two. So it's often said that when doing the practice, if you allow yourself to lose seminal fluid, it's a negative karma equivalent to killing the guru. Please don't kill me. And the meaning here is the guru, the lama, is mentioned in Mahamudra, the 4 kinds of lamas, but one is the natural radiance of your own soul, the natural radiance of your own mind. And when you lose seminal fluid for some days at least, the ability of that to intensify that natural radiance through tummo practice is diminished. So that's the only guru you kill. And maybe the guru of your own experience is also diminished a little bit. In other words, after releasing seminal fluid, people tend to become a little bit sleepy and groggy and start snoring. I think that's why a lot of men smoke a cigarette after making love. It sort of wakes them back up. And therefore there is a tantric precept to not release seminal fluid when doing these kind of practice, not to allow yourself, or to be especially careful not to release seminal fluids during the practice. Now, tummo, as said earlier by the second Dalai Lama in the Nguma text, but also as said in the various 6 yogas, can be practiced in 2 ways. One is in reliance upon one's own body, and the other is in coordination with the body of another, in reliance upon the body of another. And that refers to what in India was known as karma mudra, in Tibetan legi chakya, practicing with a partner of destiny. So I think in older times, then these practices were more often done by men and women in their late teens and early 20s. So often it's said for karma mudra, for practicing in connection and in cooperation with, in reliance upon, the Tibetan word is temba, Lushen la temba, reliance on the body of another. It's often said the best age is between 15 and 25 or 26. That's the kind of age when men and women are kind of most sexually vibrant, I guess you could say. It's not that it cannot be practiced at any other time, but that's the time when practicing it is most natural to the human condition. So in Naropa's little text on the 10 Dharmas, talking about karma mudra, he mentions that 15 to 25 as the optimal age. And I think in Tibet and Mongolia, it was quite common for people doing retreat, if they were not monks or nuns, to do the karma mudra practice in connection with tummo at that stage. Commenting on it in on the Kalachakra equivalent, the first Dalai Lama says that not everyone needs to practice in reliance on in reliance upon a partner. And those people who have done these practices or accomplished them in previous lives can easily accomplish just by means of the energy applications and visualizations as we've gone through here. In other words, they can easily control the energies and move the drops just in reliance upon their own body. But for those with no instinct of accomplishment from a previous life, then without reliance on karma mudra, one sort of hits a plateau in the practice. 15 to 25 of those are when the romantic instinct are both very intense and the bodily energies very pure. So the first Dalai Lama says, except for the issue of moving the drops, no need to rely on the body of others. And even if certainly if you have the instinct from a previous life, then similarly, no need to rely on karma mudra. That jnana mudra will suffice. When we look at the 10 Dharmas of Naropa as a complete path to enlightenment, then the ordinary sutra preliminaries, which these days in Kargyupa are usually based on Gompopa's jewel ornament of liberation, Lam Rim Tarken. There's 2 excellent translations of that in English, but the essence is really just the learning to live with joy, keeping mind on one's own impermanent nature and the impermanence of all things, the laws of cause and effect, the principle of cause and effect, noticing how everything one does physically, emotionally, mentally, and everything one says impact one's life. And then the bodhicitta, both conventional bodhicitta of great love and compassion, with the practice bodhicitta of the 6 paramita, and combined with the ultimate bodhicitta of the awareness of the tongchok, the infinity side of the equation, the emptiness side. Then based on that, often going on to the special tantric preliminaries as they're known, like Vajrasattva, doing some Vajrasattva practice and some Guru Yoga, special, there's a specialized form of Guru Yoga, visualizing Vajradhara and consort, and thinking this is sort of a symbol of my own enlightenment nature of my own mind, and also a manifestation or embodiment or a symbol of all my spiritual teachers, and doing that practice according to the oral instruction of the specific lineage. Because 6 yogas became very popular in all schools of Tibetan Buddhism. Therefore, even in the 10 main Kargyu schools, there's quite distinctions of detail. In my case, because I did 2 books on the 6 yogas, I only have the earlier editions here, since Shambhala bought out Snowline. They were republished, but one is the practice of the 6 yogas, which has the little text by Naropa and Tilopa, and then various Tibetan commentaries to aspects of the practice. And then the bigger book, which is Tsongkhapa's 6 Yogas of Naropa, which is his analysis of the 10 main lineages of Naropa that were in Tibet at the time, and what he thinks is kind of the consensus of each of the main points of practice. So that's, both of those are in print with Shambhala, but I think under their Snowline imprint. And so there, the simple Vajradhara in the Guru Yoga with consort, usually blue and red, blue representing the bliss side and the emptiness, and the red, the great passion of emptiness. And often they do mandala offering and so on, and prostrations and so on. Some people like the prostrations because they say it gets your body lean and mean. But the way Tibetans do prostrations, they sort of go all the way down and jump up. And if you get good at it, you can do like 1,000 in a 2-hour session 4 times a day. So you get 4,000 a day, so you finish in roughly a month. And a lot of people doing Drangundro as 100,000 will do like that. I think one good thing about the prostrations is your tummy gets folded, goes down, and tummy muscles strengthen when you get up. So you kind of fold down and go out. Tibetans do it very fast, like they get very good and fast at it. So it really gives you a good cardiovascular workout, but especially with the solar plexus has very healthy impact on the solar plexus, so long as you don't give yourself a hernia by all the jumping about. In Korea, my Korean students tell me they really prefer the Tibetan way of doing with the full reach and getting up quickly, because in Korea they go down very slowly, and then they put the hands up like this. And so it's much more difficult on the knees. And Tibetans who do like big numbers, they take like brushes on their hands and put on knee pads, so they sort of go very quickly, like so lack of blisters and such, protection against blisters and damage. And then the generation stage with the Kusum Lam Kher. And then we go on to the tummo, the stages of what to do to get the energies into the central channel. And once we get in, how to arouse the 4 blisses. And the fourth of those blisses really meaning a kind of an orgasmic state, a natural orgasmic state, aroused by the moving of the male and female drops. As I mentioned earlier, invoked either by simply the breathing exercises and the movements, or else in reliance upon the body of another karma mudra. So often, tummo and karma mudra are mentioned together in that context. And when tummo is being taught, then karma mudra is explained in connection with the sort of little bit more advanced stages of the practice. In other words, in order to bring the more subtle energies and more subtle drops under control. The official texts say that 4 of the 5 root energies can easily be brought into the central channel simply by practicing oneself. But the all-pervasive, the kyabje gilong, the energy that goes into every cell of the body, is the more difficult one to centralize or to withdraw. So karma mudra is often said to be necessary or beneficial, or useful, I should say, is the best word. But I think also Buddha taught it because for young people it's a wonderful way to meditate, as opposed to just sitting on a cushion and watching your breath or holding a blank mind or any of these kind of various other meditation techniques. And tummo with karma mudra, then usually they say mahamudra as the next of the 10 dharmas. And Tsongkhapa's commentary says if you don't know how to do mahamudra meditation or emptiness meditation, just rest in the bliss that's aroused by means of the practice. That itself is a kind of mahamudra. Tilopa gives 6 pointers. When you sit in that bliss aroused by the tummo and by the karma, and or by karma mudra, then the first is mingoa, not allowing memories to crowd in. In other words, keeping your mind just relaxed and on the radiance and blissful quality of being. So I think this kind of Mahamudra is very similar to Rinzai Zen. The Zen is taught in the Rinzai school. Resting in a semblance of Dharmakaya mind, something like that. Mingoa, not ruminating about the past. Just sitting in the radiance of the eternal mind. And me sempa, not allowing the mind to move into, what am I going to do when I finish this meditation? Oh, let's see, I've got to cut the lawn and prune the apple trees and go shopping, and I have to remember to pick up some turmeric. And so keeping the mind, you could say, in the here and now. Mi sampa, the third one, not allowing the mind to follow, not following any specific structure, not structuralizing, no structure. Michupa. Michupa literally means no charya. Charya here means kind of methodology, not using any particular kind of methodology. But simply resting in the radiance, the joyful radiance of the eternal soul. Migampa literally means not meditating. Not thinking of it as meditating. Not thinking, I'm here meditating on Mahamudra, which itself has some kind of conceptual base, doesn't it? Are you a conceptual base? Conceptual. So me gampa no meditating. And the sixth one, Rangshar Shakpa in Tibetan. Just letting the mind rest in the natural state. What is the natural state here? Rangshar, whatever shines, self-shining Rangshar. Means by means of the tummo and by means of the, perhaps by means also of the supplemented by karma mudra, the great bliss and radiance that has been aroused. This sort of very natural mind that arises from the invoking the fourth of the four joys or fourth of the four blisses. So, as mentioned earlier, this fourth bliss is often spoken of in terms of some sort of connection, similarity to ordinary sexual orgasm. In one of the modern texts one of the modern texts written referring to karma mudra, it mentions that the main difference between ordinary orgasm and tummo practice, fourth bliss, or karma mudra, fourth bliss, is that ordinary orgasm loses seminal fluid, but also only lasts for anywhere between 5 and 20 seconds. Whereas when one practices tummo appropriately, correctly, or uses karma mudra in that same way, that orgasmic state can be maintained for prolonged periods of time. And that prolonged period of time is the occasion for this kind of Mahamudra. The Mahamudra spoken of as the post-tummo, post-karma mudra, post-karma mudra type of Mahamudra. Then one would rest the mind in that Mahamudra state, which is the real spiritual work, you could say. That's when the karmic seeds buried there from various darknesses of the soul, these things sort of become unearthed and released. And releasing them in a field of joy and a field of radiance, they become released in a completely, I don't know, is the word comfortable correct? Comfortable manner. Otherwise, sometimes people releasing inner demons start crying and kerfluffling. There's lots of tears and mucus, and it's a real mess. But here, because of the emphasis of staying in the middle like the coiled snake between appearance and infinity, between the finiteness of the present moment and the infinity of being, the snakes and spiders and scorpions that hide within our deeper levels of consciousness, these can be released without any great traumatic experience, just simply looking at them. And the Tibetan expression is rang paba, like a leaf, as easily as a leaf falling from a tree. The tree doesn't cry that the leaf is falling off, and doesn't panic or feel pain. It just says, bye-bye, good leaf. Please stay close at hand and go into the earth and become fertilizer. And our negativities, if you will, just make us stronger. The release of those negativities just make us stronger. So, Rangshar Pabba. Rangshar Shakpa. Rangshar Shakpa. Whatever arises, just simply leave it as is. Leave it as is. As you know, in the famous six Mahamudra metaphors that are often given, one of those like the captain on a boat in the middle of the ocean with birds traveling on the boat. When a bird takes off, the captain does not change the direction of the boat. Simply lets the birds come and go at will without even noticing them, noting them as they come and go, but not making any extra effort. Rangshar Shakpa. Holding the mind on the radiance, holding the mind on the bliss and radiance, and these occurrences, little traumas. Oh yes, oh my goodness, when I was 6 years old, I just remembered I murdered my neighbor's dog. I didn't, but someone might have. And all the things in one's life that one feels one harmed others and harms done by others to oneself. just simply resting in the radiance, noticing them and letting them fly around and go like birds on a boat. And then these practices develop on two sides: illusory body, clear light. Illusory body, meaning noticing the content of consciousness, the physical world that we're in, and the physical reality of the living in the center of the drama of the five senses. And the clear light, noticing that the radiance of my sense of myself as the perceiver of the objects of the senses, the experiencer of the drama of the five senses. And there, those of you who have attended my Six Yoga seminars before or workshops before, the very strong emphasis is on the three blendings: when you're awake, when you're asleep, and at the time of death. By means of generation stage, in the very opening of first part of practicing the 10 dharmas, we take the 3 kayas of the path, remembering we're coming from the place of dharmakaya, thoughts and feelings as sambhoga kaya, getting off our arising as the full deity as nirmanakaya, mandala deity as nirmanakaya. Noticing these 3 aspects of our being and blending with them. So illusory body during the day, sitting on the meditation cushion doing tummo, giving rise to the various experiences of bliss. If we can give rise to the 4th joy or the 4th bliss, then that pure, formless, beyond form experience of that bliss, the orgasmic bliss, or bliss born together with primordial radiance, is perhaps a nice way to speak of it, is like dharmakaya mind. So doing that in tummo, we want to blend that with everything we do. When we get up from our meditation cushion and go around, we want to carry the sweet sandalwood fragrance of dharmakaya mind. Do everything we do from the state of dharmakaya mind. And then when we move out of that pure radiance, there's thoughts and feelings that arise as radiances and as joyful emotions. Remembering that all that appears to the mind all thoughts and all feelings are basically a kind of a radiance or a shining. Like last night, some of us went out to the Manhattan and a band was playing 60s music. And in 60s I was in high school and played bass in a band. And I think half their playlist were things I played between 63 and 67. So without reminiscing, those thoughts and emotions arose as shinings. The thoughts as radiances are shinings within dharmakaya mind. And the feelings as joyful celebrations. So when we're doing tummo, we give rise to the 4th bliss or the 4th joy, and we sit in Mahamudra for some time, we'll move out of that dharmakaya mind of Mahamudra with thoughts and emotions. Will shine like clouds in the sky or rainbows in the sky. So between meditation sessions, when we walk around, whatever we experience, trying to keep that sense of radiance and joy. Coming from formless presence, entering the world of form with radiance and joy. And in tummo, when we get up off of our meditation cushion and walk around and start doing things, that's our nirmanakaya, or being in the world, emanating from dharmakaya with radiance and joy, and going out and becoming a taxi driver or a school teacher or the entrepreneur with a small biscuit factory or whatever it is we do. Doing that from the place of infinite mind, arising with, coming out of that as Sambhogakaya, radiance and joy, and making our biscuits or driving our taxi or being a school teacher, whatever, with a sense of approaching it from this. So Marpa referred to those as the three blendings during the day. On the illusory body side, between meditation sessions, then seeing everything in the world as being, as having an illusory nature. In other words, it's a theater arising upon one's own mind that is distorted by one's own take on it. Myself, for instance, I like ice cream. Ice cream on a piece of cherry or apple pie or even blueberry pie. Very delicious. And when that comes out, I immediately think, delicious even without tasting it. But if someone gives me some rice wrapped in seaweed and a few suspicious ingredients in between, I think, oh my gosh. So remembering that everything we experience has an illusory nature and is made illusory by our own perceptual apparatus, our own takes on things. The clear light yoga on our meditation cushion means when we arouse to the fourth bliss, we give rise to this kind of orgasmic mind. And the orgasmic mind is the natural mother clear light, or a semblance thereof. So as in yesterday, the mention of the snake coiled between being and non-being, between the theater of life and the infinity of the soul. The infinity of all things, I suppose you could say. The radiance, the spaciousness within which the drama manifests. So sometimes we speak of the real nature of conventional reality being the experience of bliss, and the nature of emptiness being the experience of light or radiance. So therefore, often that we see that expression, bliss and wisdom, in union. Wisdom there, meaning a consciousness of the infinity of being, the natural radiance of being. We pursue that during the day, and then when we go to sleep at night, as we go to sleep at night, noticing the natural way in which the energies dissolve, just as they dissolve by means of our kundalini or chandali practice on our meditation cushion. And when the clear light of the moment of sleep manifests, then trying to hold that in the same way that in our kundalini practice we experience the fourth bliss, trying to maintain that. When we do it in kundalini, we do it by bringing the drop down from the crown chakra to the secret chakra, the sexual chakra, and experiencing a kind of an orgasmic, natural orgasmic state through meditation and yoga. And at the time of going to sleep, that same kind of radiance can more easily be recognized. Otherwise, without the tummo training, it becomes difficult to recognize. It just arises and disappears. And then as we go into sleep, going in with that radiance is the practice of clear light blending with clear light in sleep. When dreams arise, they arise as illusory body yoga. Therefore, sometimes one of the 10 dharmas is called a dream yoga and clear light of sleep yoga. Because both the clear light of sleep and the clear light of the moment of death are very similar, and the nature of dream body and the nature of after death body or bardo body are the same, then the sleep, clear light of sleep and clear light of, and the dream yoga practices are kind of a preparation for Bardo yoga. By means of the dream yoga, we can explore the beyond the senses dimensions of our being. So by means of these methods, it said one, Naropa says in his text, the best practitioner gets enlightenment in this lifetime. The mediocre practitioner gets close enough that at the time of death they can apply this technique of illusory body, clear light, great bliss factor, tummo practice, and achieve enlightenment in the Bardo. And even the stupido gets enlightenment. He mentioned other 6 or 7 lifetimes, or 16 or something like that. I don't remember offhand how many, because I don't think any of my students are stupidos. So that's not really relevant information. I don't like to waste my little gray matter. But sometimes they say the best in this life gets enlightenment in this life, the medium, the enlightenment at the moment of death, and the slow within 6 or 7 lifetimes. But some text, Kalachakra, says 16 lifetimes. And those who can't, then they do the alternate practices of Poa, which means bypassing the Bardo. And I taught some of that in various other workshops over the Theosophical Society over the years, and people can listen to those if they like. But I don't emphasize Poa much in my own teaching, because I expect my students to achieve enlightenment in this lifetime. And if they don't, then win some, lose some. The hells aren't that bad. One of my lamas once said, even if you practice Tantra badly and fall into the hells, you still achieve enlightenment more quickly than anyone who practiced anything except Tantra. You may be there for a few million years, but you'll come out and still achieve enlightenment more quickly than those who didn't practice Tantra. That might be an exaggeration. Buddhists like to exaggerate. Tibetans like to further exaggerate, and we Irish even add salt to that exaggerations. So I think let's have some, if anyone has any questions or points of discussion or clarification, we can do that now.
I was just curious if you had any specific ideas about how you would carry that Dharmakaya kind of through, or that Vajra body experience through your day, if you're going through a regular day where you've got all of these demands and everything, because that's what I struggle with the most.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 main forces used for maintaining Dharma practice are mindfulness and attentiveness. Mindfulness meaning keeping a kind of perfect distance from everything that's swirling around you. So you're not just you sort of create a spaciousness in what you're doing. You know, our sense of time is a very mysterious factor, isn't it? Sometimes time drags on slowly and painfully. And sometimes it just shoots by. And they say when you're having a good time, it just shoots by. And when you're having an awkward situation, like an argument with someone and doesn't seem to be able to come to a conclusion, it just drags on and on. So time is kind of a mysterious material. So I think one aspect of mindfulness is it creates a different sense of time, a more spacious sense of time. And mindfulness here, what is the enemy of mindfulness is holding too strongly to the object of the senses. In other words, the object of the senses owns you. You don't own the object of the senses. So it totally dominates your perception. So Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, one of the great Nyingma Lamas, in one of his talks once said it's a little bit like being at the eye of a storm or the eye of a hurricane, where everything's swirling and moving very quickly, but you're in that place of complete calm. So I think consciously cultivating a state of inner relaxed presence, joyful relaxed presence. So Nyingmas like to call it Rigpa, and Bunpo, they use that expression, Rigpa. It's kind of a place of gentle knowingness. So the new schools, Kagyu, Sakya, Kadampa, Gelugpa, they don't have that term because it didn't exist in central India. It sort of comes over from the west, meaning East Persian Empire, that sort of area. So we talk about maintaining the relaxed, joyful mind, or the natural mind, or the essence of being. Those kind of terms are used. And when one does that, I think, by any of the various methods, so those methods really here being threefold, sutra, and within Tantra, the generation stage and completion stage. I think to be effective, one has to engage in 4 meditation sessions a day. And that doesn't mean in a very formal way, like in the morning to really clear your mind and get it in focus and on time. And in the evening to do the same. And then twice during the day, as I mentioned yesterday, the day before. If you're at work, you can always just go to the bathroom and sit on the dumpster for 5 or 10 minutes. I think it's just really getting in touch with one's own inner silence, one's own center of the storm. Whatever storm is going on, it's always going on within your center. So often we talk about the center of the universe. I think the Buddhist idea is everyone is right at the center of their own universe. But right now, for instance, with planet Earth, it's flying through around the sun at a huge speed, and the sun is flying with this whole little solar system within the galaxy, and the galaxy is flying within a swirl of galaxies. And so everything's happening very, very quickly from those perspectives. I mean, right here we're traveling tens of thousands of miles an hour. It could be very hectic. But when we remember that we are the center of our own universe, then there's nothing coming, nothing going. So I think the first chapter of Nagarjuna's book on learning to sit in the middle, learning to centralize yourself, is simply called no coming, no going. It seems like everything's very busy, but it's really just theater. So in ordinary, a sutra sort of level of training, this is done with simple mindfulness to create a very distinct sense of centeredness between infinity and the finite meaning the busyness, and infinity meaning a place of silence. In generation stage, we try to do it by means of remembering ourself as a Buddha, a Tantric Buddha form, and trying to engage in every activity as a playful activity. Not, I mean, to accomplish, but accomplish in a playful way. Well, there's many games we do in our life which we do in a very fast way, isn't there? Throwing things in like racquetball and tennis and what tennis is about. But the most beautiful is, of course, snooker, pool. It's my favorite spectator sport next to boxing. Boxing, I think, is my number one, and my second is snooker. They're both sweet sciences of geometry. And I remember once there was a chat between a half dozen, on television, a half dozen of the scientists who study great athletes. And they commented that one reason great hockey players, great football players, and great boxers and so on, one reason they are so successful is they are able to have a completely altered state of time. Like the whole world kind of plays in slow motion. And so they sort of fit in the spaces between all of that action. And the Tao, I love the Taoist expression in the Tao Te King. And my apologies to Samit for mentioning this. But the master, when he's chopping up a ox with a knife, because Samit doesn't eat beef or pork. But anyway, the Taoists do, so we'll use that. And when he chops, his knife never gets dull because he hits in the empty spaces. Because of course, between the bones and all of that, there's such things are there. So I think that Taoist statement is very much what Tantra is talking about, to keep in that place of complete silence, and then there is no dulling of the knife of your daily life, something like that. And the expression in the Uttara Tantra, which I mentioned yesterday, keep one foot in nirvana and the other foot in samsara. And the foot in nirvana has a sense of the complete stillness, the complete silence of being. And the foot in the world has the sense of the complete drama or theater of being. Now, Uttara Tantra puts that in terms of the general sutra idea of the bodhisattva, which is driven by great compassion. If we blend love and compassion with everything we do, and this is emphasized in every Mahayana text. A cloth seller selling the cloth might be very busy running that business, but having the sense that everyone I sell to gets great benefit from my cloth, or a vegetable seller, or a farmer, or a taxi driver, or a school teacher. But when they don't think of it in terms of its sort of loving impact, beneficial impact, it can become monotonous and boring and tedious, and therefore stressful. You know. And that's all I got to say about that.
Thank you.
So you were kind of talking about some post-meditation practice throughout your response to his question, and then you were speaking about post-meditation, illusory body, and clear light practice. Is there much post-meditation instruction for tummo?
Well, everything in the Six Yogas of Naropa is in reference to tummo. So you do, tummo is what you do, is talking about the fire side of things, the ferocious lady side of things, intensifying your feminine element of higher consciousness or more open consciousness. And you do that sitting on the meditation cushion, or you do it during, between meditation sessions, or the post-meditation. And what do you do? What is tummo doing? It's got two sides to it. The noticing the theater side, the theater of thoughts and emotions in the world in which we live, and it's got the radiant side, which is the clear light. So it means between tummo sessions, between sittings, and as I mentioned yesterday, they don't call them between sessions or post-meditation, usually they call it J-tub. What you got out of it, carry it with you after you got it. What to do after you got it. So in other words, whatever sort of clarity, energy, joy, sense of relaxation, freedom, radiance, whatever of that you generated during the practice, try and blend that in with the post-meditation session. And you do that on two sides, right? The illusory body side and the radiant mind side. Illusory body means noticing everything as dramatic theater. And on the illusory, on the radiant side, noticing that the theater rises and falls on your own radiant mind. And what does that mean? Trying to keep a sense of your inner stillness or your inner centeredness. I am the center of my own universe. And the thoughts and feelings that arise in reference to everything going on maintain joy and radiance. And in terms of engagement, engaging by means of the four trinle, the four Buddha karmas, or four Buddha activities of being peaceful and gentle, being increasing or augmenting, being a little bit tough, or getting a little bit violent. But on the basis of the pure view, as it's called, the seeing self, others as Buddha emanation forms, and theater, everything that occurs being part of the theater of one's own life. So I think that's... So tummo post-meditation isn't spoken of so much just by itself, because tummo has two sides to it, the illusory body, the being in the world side, and the pure radiance side. It has got those two sides to it.
And so when we do tummo, we're focusing on the navel chakra, right? Which, we're also associating a little bit more with the physical. And I guess my question is really about building that up, and is it necessary to build it up? And so, from a Taoist alchemical perspective, like that's actually important. Is like you'd spend a lot of time focusing on that physical level, right? But from my understanding of what we're doing here is like you don't really have to spend that much time building that up. Even if, let's say, maybe you have health problems, you can simply go on and progress up to the heart chakra and the throat chakra and so forth. Is that correct?
Completely wrong.
Okay. That's okay. That's why I asked.
No, it's quite correct, yes. I think the Buddhist take here is that we have to be both hard on ourselves and gentle with ourselves. So we want to start generating more of our marcha, our red element, or in the Taoist system, the chi power, you could say. But at the same time, we want to maintain a balanced life in all aspects. So when we do the practice, we're talking about two things: raising the red, which balances the energies in the upper chakras. And when it hits the crown chakra, causes the brain to release more facilitating chemistry. And as far as heat rising and cool descending, fire rising, water descending. So these two things, the rising of the female element, the fiery element, And then through that, impacting the other chakras, and the most important being the brain, certainly, in this aspect of things. And previously here I taught a very interesting breathing practice often done in tummo, where you sit up and you sit like this, and you see the white drop and the red drop, and you take a breath and you breathe out quickly, and the red rises to hair, and you breathe in and the white descends to hair, and you breathe out and the red rises to hair, and then breathe in and the white descends to hair. You do it in 4 breaths. So the first out breath, the red kind of overflows, and the first in breath, the white overflows, and then out breath, in breath, out breath, in breath, out breath, in breath. So you just basically go. And we can sit up and just try that, and you can do it at home. If you ever get a little sleepy in your meditation, and I noticed 1 or 2 of you when we were meditating, especially after a lunch and eating rice yesterday, you looked a little bit on the dopey side. If you do this breathing exercise, you can either sit like this or like this. Means either hands down like this or hands in the fire posture. And you see the red drop and the white drop. And you breathe out, and the red drop overflows at the navel. Breathe in. The white drop overflows at the heart. Breathe out. The red energy rises to the heart chakra. Breathe in. White descends to the throat chakra. Breathe out. Red rises to throat chakra. Breathe in. White descends to heart chakra. Breathe out. Red rises to the crown chakra. Breathe in. White descends to navel chakra. So you basically go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 4 outs, 4 ins. And you do it quite quickly. And at the end of the 8th, the 4th breath, the 8th out in, you just pause for a minute, then on the in breath, and then do it again. And you do that for about 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and you feel better. True? So although we want to increase the red element, when we're sitting in meditation, sometimes we'll use that kind of practice to raise the red, bring it all the way up, and then bring down the white.
Raise the red on the inhale.
Right.
The white on the exhale.
Right, yeah.
The red moves
No.
on the inhale, the white moves on the exhale.
The red moves on the out, in, out, in, out, in.
So the exhale rising up and the inhale dropping down.
And so it's just like a column rises up, and a column of white, and a column of red, and a column of white. And if you do that for like 20 minutes or a half hour, something like that, people often go into very sort of deep states of ecstasy just from the hyperventilation. Again, it's one of those things, if you have a very high blood pressure or you wear a pacemaker, you should do it gently. But otherwise, give it your best.
So I was wondering if there's things that could cause problems like a lung disorder that we need to be careful of while we're doing this practice.
All of the texts mention some dangers from every practice. And everything we do in life has some dangers. As a great comedian, Bostonian comedian Bill Burr put it, if you put a swimming pool in your backyard, your chances of drowning in your swimming pool have increased. If you go jogging, your chances of getting knee damage or spraining an ankle or getting robbed by some bandit hanging out on your jogging route have increased. If you stay home, the chances of the sky falling on your house and your house falling on you have increased. And once someone asked me that, I said one of the main causes of broken bones and severe accidents and even death in America are people tripping over their pets. So if you want to live safely, you buy a gun, go home and shoot your pets. That's not true. Don't do that. For those of you who are slightly challenged humorarily, it's a joke. But whatever we do has some risk to it, and there's no getting around that. You know, people who eat peanuts. Sometimes a peanut goes down the wrong pipe, and you're dead. Or I had a very wealthy friend who was a hypochondriac, and he went to the dentist and stepped out of the dental chair and got woozy and fell down and hit his head and went into a coma and died 2 days later. So one can never do anything without there being some chance of doing it stupidly. Like, the fact is, the Six Yogas is a well outlined and well mapped path to enlightenment. Has been used by tens of thousands of peoples from every walk of life, from kings and queens to handmaidens and flower girls and farmers and yak herders, great scholars and academics, to devotional monks and ritualists and shamans and all of that sort of thing, doctors and lawyers and Indian chiefs. The Indian chiefs, not North American native Indian chiefs. North American native Indian chiefs might also have practice, but I'm not so aware of them having done so. And there's generally, because it's so well mapped out and it's been practiced and taught so clearly over the centuries, negative side effects are very, very rare. But you may be one of those people who does it wrongly, and you're mixing in dharmakaya and radiance and joy and manifesting and breathing, and you get hit by a bus because you weren't watching where you were walking. But sometimes on the deeper practices, there can be some sort of energy disbalance. But the seed of that is already there, so it's something you have to work through anyway. If you don't work through it, then you're in trouble anyway. So you can either walk around having that problem, or you can like cut that boil now and let the poisonous pus out while you're still young, strong, and handsome.
Can I just ask something else real quick?
Sure.
Can you do like an alternative guru yoga like Lama or Lama Chopa?
Yeah, but usually they make a simple one, because Lama Chopa is like a real long one. And so when you do this, you want it to be like a 2-minute thing. You don't want it to be huge. But if you're doing it as a preliminary practice, and it's the main practice you're doing, then a Gendon like Yama or Lama Chopa or anything like that. But I like the one in the Six Yogas because it's Vajradhara and consort. And to me, that's more appealing than a monk sitting there with a hat. I mean, I like Tsongkhapa very much. I love his lineages, and I love his writings and his teachings and so on. In terms of Guru Yoga, maybe not. I do like his hat, though. But I think this sexual element in Tantra is very important, seeing the male-female in union, because too often, and especially here in the West, men think of themselves as men and women as women. And the great strength of Tantra is it emphasizes that everyone is 50-50, and it's just whether we protrude or not. And so then to try to strengthen the female element, which is more to do with the spacious quality, because it's through the power of spacious consciousness that all becomes possible. And that's a female quality. So I think the male-female in union is very important to remind us of the dynamic of both the spacious female quality of consciousness and sort of the aggressive male wanting to hold a TV channel changer and drive the car and all these things. And everyone has both male and female, but those kind of things are there, aren't they?